quite a bit of content to get through, and I'll put some slides up in a moment that will take us through what we'll cover today. Before I go any further, just to let everybody know, it will be recorded, so it's for the benefit of those who can't join today. So just to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. So by way of introduction, so my name's Jo Finnerty. I'm the Assistant Programme Director for Adult Social Care at NHS Greater Manchester. So part of NHS Greater Manchester, but work very closely with the 10 Greater Manchester DASs, so that's the Directors of Social Services across the 10 Greater Manchester local authorities. So, but very much work at a system level as well. So just to give a little bit of context, I suppose, about the session. So the Health and Social Care, the GM Health and Social Care System Group identified 2 priorities from a workforce perspective for the current 6-month period. I think it's 6 months, I'm right, Anna? Please correct me if I if I get anything wrong.
It is, yeah.
Thank you. So, but those 2 priorities were employees with a disability, so support to employees with a disability, and support to employees who are also unpaid carers for a family member or a loved one. So this session's looking at working carers, and we've got colleagues from across the system joining us to look at different aspects really of that, and to sort of share some of the brilliant work that's happening in Greater Manchester and some of the tools that can support you in your own organisations, but also plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions if there are, things specific maybe to your organisation that you're struggling with to get started, or areas that you're currently working on, and hopefully there'll be the insights, I suppose, in that session to share with you. So I will just share some slides, which will talk you through what we're going to cover today as well. So I'll put them in slideshow, then they're easier to see, if it'll let me. Yeah, it's not letting me at slideshow. If it lets me in. What was I saying earlier about not being able to get into slideshow? Can everybody see that okay? Some of them are quite wordy. That's all I'm worried about. If I can't, for some reason, it is not removing the bar at the top that lets me click on slideshow. No, it's not. Okay, so can you all see the content slide that's up at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so so what I'll do first of all is talk through some of the, I suppose, the facts and figures really around working carers in Greater Manchester, but also nationally, to sort of set the scene for the session. And then we'll hear from colleagues at Encompass and also from Wigan Council on some of the work that they're doing. So Jane's joined us from Bury Carers Hub to talk about supporting working carers. And Mary from Wigan Council is going to talk about their Carer Confident journey. So the work, some brilliant work that they've done, and they are, I think, the first North West local authority to achieve the 2nd level of Carer Confidence. So she'll talk us through how they've done that and the benefits that support that they give to their carers has brought to the organisation, as well as to the carers themselves. And then I'll say a little bit about the Greater Manchester Working Carer Toolkit that was developed, and how that can support you on your own journeys to supporting your working carers within your organisations. I think it might let me do slideshow now. Yes, has that worked?
It has, Jo, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so bit of a background really and context for the session. These are some of the initiatives, I guess, over time that have taken place within Greater Manchester. So through the Living Well at Home programme, transformation programme, which sits within NHS Greater Manchester, there was a Greater Manchester Carers exemplar model developed, I think I'm going to quote 2018, I think it was developed, and that was made up of a number of different aspects really. So around commitments to carers, a carers charter that was launched jointly with the combined authority and the mayor, asks of organisations across Greater Manchester to support carers, and a support for carers programme, so a dedicated programme to supporting carers. And then as part of that, so that gives a little bit more information about the commitments. So it's around that integrated approach to identifying, assessing and meeting carers' health and wellbeing needs. The Carers Charter, setting out what we believe that we believe all carers have a right to be respected, valued and supported, equally in their caring role as experts for their cared for and as individuals in their own right. So how we collectively improve how carers are supported. And then the exemplar model sets out how, through building on that great practice locally and nationally and listening to carers, how we can create those service offers and enhance the standard of carer services, and a reduction, I think, in the variance of service delivery across localities in Greater Manchester. So that was the overarching commitment. And then these were some examples of how we did that. So that's on the right, the Carers Charter itself. You won't be able to read the detail back. We can certainly send you links to see what that covers. And then on the left, the Greater Manchester Working Carer Toolkit, which I will talk through in a little bit more detail at the end of the session, and how that can support you as employers. So these were some of the figures, the latest or census figures for carers in Greater Manchester. So you can see from 2011 to 2021 how there's been an increase in the hours of care that carers provide, and obviously, you know, in the context of the workplace, obviously that has implications for the amount of support that people or employees are providing to the people that they care for. Nationally, there are around 5 million working carers in the UK, and it's about 1 in 7 workers. So when you think of the size, certainly from a health and social care perspective, the size of some of the organisations that we work within, that's a pretty big number of people across the organisations that are also juggling work and caring. And just a figure there that research had shown that around a quarter of those consider giving up work. So again, when you think of that in terms of numbers, that's a big proportion of the workforce, you know, that may struggle to juggle work and caring, and actually consider giving up work altogether as a result of that. And then on the right, just to remind us really, for those of you, particularly those of you in HR teams across organisations, and how that, you know, that may impact on your policy, as well as information for individuals. So the Carers Leave Act came in April 24, so April this year, which is about giving unpaid carers a better balance around unpaid care and paid employment. So a number of factors to consider in there about the 5 days unpaid carers leave, but also who that applies to, and things like being able to delay that leave. So some of that's changed quite considerably. And then also the Flexible Working Act. So that now gives employees the right to ask for flexible work, request flexible working from day one of employment. So that came in on the same day. So again, you know, a pretty crucial aspect for anybody who's balancing work and caring. I will move on, and I think I will hand over at this point to my colleague Jane at Bury Carers Hub, who will talk about the work that Encompass provide to their carers. So Jane, just let me know when you want me to move the slide.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us along to your bite-sized session today. My name's Jane Harrison. I'm the service manager of Bury Carers Hub, and we are the adult commission service working in the borough of Bury. Next slide, please. A little bit about Encompass. So we operate primarily across the north of England. We were operating exclusively in Lancashire footprint, but now we're moving out. We're in Merseyside. We have 2 services in Greater Manchester, myself in Bury, and we have Rochdale. We have Cumbria, Warrington and Staffordshire. And the main focus is we help people regain control of their lives by providing hope and a sense of purpose. We have carer services, advocacy services, wellbeing counselling and a large volunteer service. And we place people, service users and carers at the centre of everything we do, delivering excellence by utilising people's strengths to stay well. Next slide, please. It's only going to be a whistle-stop tour, really. So I thought I'd start with a case study that is currently in the service. I don't carry a caseload, but currently I am. So I picked up this carer. So I'm just going to really talk you through it. The initial referral, the triage stage, it's a 55-year-old man caring for his 58-year-old wife who has a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. The initial referral came from Bury Adult Social Care following a statutory carers assessment that they'd been out to do after he'd self-referred to adult care services. There was no reference on the referral to this gentleman being employed, and I sent an introductory email and service information as his preferred point of communication. The assessment phase was part of the initial meeting, really. We arranged a time and a date that was convenient for him. And we went through an overview of his caring and the impact on his well-being. He disclosed during that initial meeting that he does work full-time for a local social care provider. His job was really, really important to him, both financially and he described it as a distraction from everything that was going on, and he really enjoys his role. He also disclosed that he cares for his daughter as well as his wife, who also was recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Although he said he had a good relationship with his manager, he'd never ever discussed his caring responsibilities. And earlier this year, his wife needed acute inpatient care. There was no local beds and she was placed out of area in Norwich. The admission was for 5 months, and this gentleman travelled down on his days off, splitting his time between Norwich and home. He stated that he was worried about speaking with his line manager. He thought it would affect his employment. So I reassured him that and provided relevant information and legislation relating to this. He also felt he would like access to formal counselling to discuss issues that were causing him anxiety, both in his relationship, his own well-being, and within his employment. All that information was provided, and I did encourage him to speak to his line manager. The second one was very much employment support. He disclosed that following our conversation, he had spoken with his line manager and they were very, very supportive and understanding, and they offered him flexible working if needed. He was also referred to their employee assistance programme for one-to-one counselling, which he was really appreciative of. He could have accessed it via talking therapies, but there was a longer waiting list, and he felt going through work was the appropriate thing to do as they were being so supportive. He now has access to carer-friendly support and doesn't feel guilty or conflicted regarding working in his caring role. The last appointment was very much focusing on his own well-being. So a lot of it was around his wife accessing services. There'd been a bit of a breakdown when she was transferred from Norwich and she wasn't allocated a worker from the community mental health team. So we've linked his wife into the community mental health team. She's also now getting community-based peer support through different local groups. And he said there's been an improvement in the relationship. The daughter that has bipolar also provides support to her mum. Having the same diagnosis, she comes at it from a different perspective. She's been referred into Bury Carers Hub. She's an apprentice nurse for Northern Care Alliance or Pennine, I'm not sure, sorry, which one. And she was struggling with submission dates. So we've done supported letters for her to university. She's also told her employers that she has this diagnosis and that she is a carer. So the outcome really is the carer is now able to manage the dual caring responsibilities, knowing he has a supportive, understanding line manager and employer, and he feels empowered and has access to Bury Carers Hub anytime if his situation changes. So that's just a small piece of work around identifying somebody who's been in the wilderness for quite a long time. Next slide, please. So what does good support look like? thinking around legislation and thinking about the carer, most carers would say to us, actually, flexible starting and finishing hours, maybe compressed working hours, shift swapping and self-rostering, job sharing, part-time working, home working, hybrid working, remote working, and flexible holidays to fit in with alternative care arrangements. And I'm very, very aware that in different sectors, some of this doesn't always seem that possible, but simple wins can achieve quite a lot. And the reassurance that they have got it as well is really, really important. Workplace support is really valuable. So signposting to care organisations. So if you have somebody who is a working carer within your team, within your organisation, find out who the local carer support provider is. There is support available throughout the boroughs of Greater Manchester. I've worked in virtually all of them, so I do know they all have an offer, whether it's through the local authority or an organisation like ourselves or other charity organisation. Providing information, education and training to managers is vital. If people are aware of working carers within your workforce, providing that will help them identifying and supporting people. Including information about caring support available to carers at workplace events. So we've got Carers' Rights Day, the 21st, on Thursday. So small events like that, it's the theme this time is recognising your rights as a carer. So, you know, highlighting that, getting out in comms to managers, organisations, teams, departments, wherever it needs to go. Peer-to-peer support's really, really valuable. If that can be available, it does work. And again, the little wins sometimes. And encouraging regular and ongoing one-to-one conversations with support from line managers is vital. If that conversation is ongoing, then you are supporting the carer. And if they've got a line manager who fully understands, they will be there as an employer for you, an employee for you, and make sure they give their best without feeling guilty and conflicted about maybe needing time off. Next slide, please. So, good practice points. There's a lot really around this. So, care awareness training for me is the starting point. Embedding this within the organisation, the department, the teams, and have it as mandatory for all, not just managers, not just SLGs, SMTs, all staff should have access to care awareness training. And encouraging hidden working carers to self-identify as a result of maybe undergoing this training. I've been banging the drum about getting it in on all introduction training for new staff within all sectors. I think it would be really, really valuable. Leading on from that, identifying carer champions within the organisation. So a carer champion will have a more in-depth knowledge and understanding of legislation and the impacts of caring on a person. If you have a good carer champion, they will run with this. It's not an onerous task. It's not an extra piece of work. It's just part of everything that they do and really valuable to your organisation. Support for carer champions. So we identify the carer champions, but making sure that they're supported, that they're sharing good practice. If there's any themes and challenges that may be coming out when they're in their role as a carer champion, and developing a carers network to support the group. You know, it could meet once a quarter, the carer champions, and just discuss what's going on and share that good practice and talk about challenges, because there will be challenges as well. Having senior representation and buy-in to drive the initiative is really, really important. So having someone at a high level who will really take on board this and communicate it, you know, at the higher level, So making sure people are getting that support. Ongoing recruitment of carer champions. Carer champions come and go, people move, people leave. So having some sort of framework, training program to get carer champions coming through and promoting it via internal networks and meetings, board meetings, etc., wherever you can promote it. Having access to employee assistance programs or similar programs. So I know within certain trusts they have things like SCARF and various other versions of that. So if that is available, it can really help your working carers remain well and in work. And achieving a carer-friendly accreditation. Here at Encompass, we have something called the carer-friendly mark. So we work with teams, departments, wards. I'm currently working with 2 wards within Northern Care Alliance, and we're helping them become carer friendly. It's over a period of several months, and it's an accreditation that looks at where they are now, where they want to be, and how they're going to get there. It doesn't just involve the ward, it involves HR as well. So making sure that the policies, the procedures, etc., are all there to back it up, and they get the accreditation at the end of that. But it all starts at the beginning with the carer awareness training. Next slide, please. So I've put these 2 slides in, slide 6 and slide 7, really as a resource. I'm not going to go through them because it talks from the Carers UK website, and it talks about the caring journey. And I imagine the slides are going to be shared, so you will have access to that. And on the next slide, please, it talks about the employment journey. So the 2 work together, and it takes you through from a carer coming into caring, or one that's been in caring for a long time, just being identified, to going out at the other end where maybe they become bereaved or the caring has ended. And again, with the employment one, it starts with recruitment and then ends with leaving work and going into retirement. Next slide, please. And that's the presentation. So it's a thank you from me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It is a whistle-stop tour. My contact details are on there. If anybody will want to contact me for any information, I'm more than happy to speak with them. Thank you.
Take my mute back off. Thanks so much, Jane. That was really insightful, and I think really valuable and powerful to hear the case study as well. So to hear it from a carer's perspective. Has anybody, we will have chance at the end as well, but has anybody got anything they particularly wanted to ask with Jane from her presentation before we move on? Nope, can't see any hands up. I don't think I'm missing any. Stunned everybody into silence, Jane. Okie doke, we will move on to Mary from Wigan. So if I just put the slides back up, hopefully this will work. Can anybody see? Can you see the slides? Oh, sorry, I might have to take it down on mine. Have the slides come up for everybody?
We can see the end of Jane's presentation.
Okay, bear with me. Apologies, it's because I've been putting them up and down.
If you just press the right-hand arrow, does it just jump to the next slide?
Yeah, it's gone.
No, press it on your keypad.
Okay. Thank you, Anna.
There you go.
Right, I will hand over to Mary, who'll talk through Wigan Council's journey. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting us along, and thank you to Jane, because a lot of this reflects what you've been talking about too. So yeah, I think the slides have gone on my screen. Are they on? Have they gone off everybody else's?
I think we might have just lost Jo momentarily. So just if you want to hold 1 second, I don't know what's happened to Jo, but she's just dropped off the call.
Gone. I'll just wait a minute, or I can try and find the slides myself if not.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mary, if you've got them, do you want to share them directly?
Let's see if I can find them. Can you see that?
Oh, I think Joe's taken back control.
Oh, right. I'll try and
Apologies,
put
it all just dropped out. So
You did, but you're sharing now. We can see them.
So are you sharing? Let me just try and get back on. Let's have a look. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so just a quick overview really of our journey with putting some of the practices in place and achieving the Carer Confident accreditation from Carers UK. Okay, so next slide, thank you. Yes, so this is just to provide you with a bit of background information, and as we've spoke about previously, research show that 1 in 7 employees are likely to be carers, and we knew that in Wigan, and from our census data, where we had over 31,000 carers in the borough, providing care for a loved one. We knew that based on our headcount, there was over 500 potential working carers within Wigan Council, but we didn't know who they all were or if they were getting the help and support that they may need. And we wanted to build a really supportive and inclusive workplace where they felt empowered to identify, felt recognised and supported. And we recognise the benefits to their individual well-being, the teams, but also the organisation as a whole, because it's good employment practice, but it also makes good business sense. So we started the journey of embedding the supportive practices in 2021, and we achieved the Carer Confident accreditation accomplished in 2022. Thank you. Next slide. So this is just a bit of a timeline to give you an idea of what we've been aiming to do over the last few years. And from the very beginning, we had full support from SMT, our leader of the council, cabinet members, and they continue to support, which has been key to success. And at the end of 2021, which was quite an apt time following the pandemic, with increased isolation, changing in working practices, and increased caring responsibilities, and just that change to the way we work. So we went to SMT with our business case, and it was fully supported and approved. And we created an enhanced offer for carers within our organisation to be supportive in the workplace, and it included increased special leave at the early stages, but that later changed, as I'll talk through as we go through. We did start by speaking to groups of carers, and that engagement work, we asked them what would make a difference to them. And there were some very clear messages coming through, that raising awareness of caring within the workplace, supporting people to identify, supporting managers to understand the importance and the benefits of supporting carers in the teams, and most significantly, the challenges of time to support the loved ones whilst they were balancing it with their work. So we started to share some messages of what a carer is and raise that awareness through our internal comms to increase identification and give people the confidence to identify. And we also started to share some education sessions, so sessions for both managers and staff, to raise that awareness and also signpost to the support in place. Then we started to recruit carer champions to be those points of contact for carers, offering that compassionate and supportive approach with a listening ear, and they're key to cascading messages to wider teams. And then through the carer champions, we had carer networks that began to form for that peer-to-peer support. And then we were pleased to achieve Carer Confident in 2022, just recognising those supportive practices. And since then, we've kind of further enhanced the offer, updating our supporting attendance policy, and we've introduced carers leave separately to special leave. And we also have a more formal carer network, so building that carer network where we meet regularly every 6 weeks, the opportunity for everybody to come together. That's been a big value to the carers we support. Okay, next slide. So as you can see, we've got good foundations in place, but we now want to continually spread the message of why it's important to support working carers throughout the organisation. And it is a continual cycle of review and improvement. We reach out to staff regularly, we share staff and manager education sessions, and we've also, as I mentioned, strengthened the carer network. And we did that by offering drop-in sessions, going round to the different work bases to kind of offer that one-to-one conversation where if people didn't want to contact a carer champion initially, they could just come along and have a conversation with us and have an informal chat to find out more. And that really helped to build the carer network and increase attendance and spread that message. And it also, that carer network offers a really good opportunity to hear feedback and impact from carers and help them to feedback how we need to shape things. Okay, next slide. So we do have a carer pledge in place, and that's that kind of affirms our commitments to supporting employees who are carers and their well-being and supporting them to thrive both within and outside of the workplace. It's a statement that provides assurance of the support that they can expect to receive as an employee of Wigan Council, but it's also a great retention tool. And we want to continually develop the kind of workplace where carers feel valued, feel included, and feel free to express the views and opinions and confident that the needs will be heard and recognised. And our senior leaders have also created videos sharing the pledge and sharing their support, which has been invaluable. And we use that in our internal comms and also in our education sessions to staff. Okay, so yeah, no, sorry, go back one. Still got just a little bit more. Thank you. So yeah, it's likely that there's going to be a growing number of people who are or will become carers at some point during the working life. So we recognise that it's good employment practice, but it also makes good business sense to support our working carers. And evidence shows that implementing support for carers in the workplace has many benefits, not only to the individuals, but also to the organisation as a whole. So employers that provide support in the workplace, it's resulted in many business benefits and also cost saving through a positive and inclusive workplace. It's a good attraction and retention tool. The retention of staff, if they get the support they need, they're more likely to stay. Increased engagement and productivity. Happy staff are more fully engaged and productive and they're motivated to do well. The resilience, they become more resilient as they're not having to juggle everything, so things become unmanageable. And that reduction in absenteeism, because the right support allows them to take the time they need and therefore stops the need for absenteeism. And it allows time for things like covering appointments, and it allows teams and managers and individuals to plan more effectively. Okay, next slide. So we also value the fact that many people who are balancing work and care have a wealth of skills and experience that might not possibly be related to the role, but they can bring to our workforce. So things such as managing financial circumstances, the ability to prioritise and multitask, the coordinating of professionals, good at working independently, complex scheduling, and being understanding and empathetic. So we really recognise how it's good to understand and recognise those skills that they can bring to our workforce. Thank you. So next slide. Yep. So through our policy support and all the communications we promote the number of statutory rights, which include the right to request flexible working, the right to have time off in emergencies, and protection from discrimination. So in Wigan, we've created an enhanced offer. So yeah, flexi time, which can come in many different forms. It's just about finding a balance between the wishes of the employee and also the business needs of the service, whilst maintaining those high quality outcomes for customers. So we have special leave in place, which helps support staff with paid time off during exceptional circumstances. And through our policy in Wigan, managers have the discretion to grant up to 10 days paid special leave in any given year. And it's based on a 12-month rolling period, which is pro rata for part-time employees. And it's really important to mention that it can be taken in days consecutively, as individual days, in half-day increments, or in hours as needed. And then when we updated our supporting attendance policy, we also introduced carers leave. So carers can self-certify that they're caring for a dependent with a long-term health need. And in Wigan Council, in addition to special leave, carers are entitled to 10 days carers leave within a 12-month rolling period, and that starts from the first day of employment. So whilst away from work, their employment rights, including holiday and returning to work, are protected. And we just find that it boosts productivity by preventing carer burnout, and it supports with the retention of valuable staff and reduces recruitment and induction costs. And also protection from discrimination under the Equality Act. Staff are protected from direct discrimination due to the caring responsibilities, and we've made a commitment to support employees to access training and development, and there's a wealth of e-learning activities and training that could be beneficial to someone in the working role or in the caring role, and we give them access to this training to enhance the skills both inside and outside of work. Okay, next slide. So we've lots of tools and opportunities in place to support both managers and carers, and they're all easily accessible. We've created an accessible page on our hub, our intranet, and it's got all the documentation that people may need. And it also highlights our carer champions and our carer network and how people can get in contact and how they can join. And we have things such as a carer's passport. We've also a carer's contingency plan to kind of plan for those unforeseen circumstances, to offer reassurance to both the team, the manager and the carer themselves. We share staff and manager education sessions regularly. There's also the offer of wellbeing support and advice and access to counselling and the Wellbeing Hub chat line. We've got over 20, nearly 30 carer champions cascaded throughout teams, and the carer network where anybody from the organisation can join the carer network for that peer-to-peer support. We've also got a manager's toolkit on there with some top tips and advice for managers, and we share regular messages through internal comms and our and carer champions share them too. And we also value signposting to external support, so it is there on the hub, and also the carer champions have had lots of training and information to share with the people that they're supporting. So next slide. Last of all, just wanted to share a little bit of feedback that we've had, so some of the difference that it's made to people, and there's just a few comments that we've had that I thought I would share. So the first one's from a carer, and the second one is also from a manager who's been supporting someone. So the first one, it says, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all the support for carers and the carers passport. I was able to support my loved one whilst my family member had an operation, and knowing that I didn't have to answer work calls and complete my work at the same time made such a difference to me and our whole family. And then from a manager, just says, my experience as a manager, line managing colleagues, is that people don't always disclose what's happening at home or in their personal lives. Sometimes work is a safe haven and people cope in many different ways. But thanks to the support through Wigan Council and taking on board what it feels like to be a carer, I feel a great sense of gratitude when a member of my team feels that they can open up to me and share what's happening in their personal life. It often feels like a great relief that they've said what is happening, and it makes it so much easier to put the right support in place to what they say that they need. So, yeah. So that's us.
Thanks
Thank
ever
you.
so much. Thanks, Mary. Can everybody hear me okay? Because I'm having real issues with this headset. I hope you can hear me okay. That was really powerful as well, I think, and certainly to be able to see that from an organisational perspective, but the really lovely feedback at the end as well to show what a kind of difference it makes to people, and balance that with the business benefits is really powerful. I can't see if anybody's got any hands up at the moment to ask Mary, but I'm wondering if shall I carry on with the working carer toolkit, and then we can take the slides down, and if anybody's got questions, we can maybe cover them then. So I will give you a little bit of background to this. Some of you may well be aware of it. And have used it. But the JM Working Carer Toolkit was developed back in 2018, and it was based around research that the North of England ADAS, so that's the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services branches, undertook. So it was very much based around the principles that came out of that piece of research. But we also developed it following consultation with carers in Greater Manchester through a cross-sector survey. So the toolkit is applicable to any sector. So it's not just for health and social care, it's any employer across Greater Manchester. And the survey followed that. So we went out literally across Greater Manchester organisations to carers, and got quite a balanced and a good response back to that. So those resultant themes, if you like, from that survey that were drawn from those experience inform the final toolkit. So when you see the toolkit and the principles in there, that's very much drawn. And listening to Jane's and Mary's presentations, there is so much. It literally follows the same same principles. You can see how it absolutely fits with with what people's experience is. So it's also based around those best practice examples of how organisations can support employees who also provide unpaid care. So there are suggestions in there, there are case studies, and importantly, I think we'll talk a bit more maybe later, but a self-assessment tool that you can use to gauge your own organisation's current practice and look at ways in which you might develop a plan to better support working carers. I've put a link to the toolkit there on the slides. I'm assuming Anna will circulate the slides afterwards, but that's the link to the toolkit itself, so you can have a look at that and the resources that are in there afterwards. So I thought it was important as well to maybe put some of the quotes from the survey in here. So these were examples, and again, I think they chime really, really closely with what we've heard so far. So some of the examples from different carers working in different organisations about what helps them. So we were very interested in, as a working carer, what helps you from in a work context, or if you're for people who weren't in work, what would help you to get back into work or to get into the workplace. So again, I won't read through them all, but really, some of those are such practical things that are very easily adopted, because I think there's often this perception that it's about flexibility in time, which depending, I think somebody acknowledged, it might have been you, Jane, that acknowledged, depending on the sector, that can be quite difficult. But some of these are actually really practical things that take some of that pressure off individuals. So again, I'll let you you can have a little look at that now, but I'll circulate it with the slides. And then the toolkit itself, whereas I mentioned about it following a number of principles, the first 9 of those are what came out of that Northwest ADAS, that Northern ADAS regions survey and policy that came out of that. And again, you'll see the absolute correlation with what's just been described. So it's about knowing who your working carers are. So fundamental to supporting people is knowing who they are within your organisation. It's about champions, which again was a key feature, I think, of what we've heard. So who are those champions within your organisation? And it's important to create that culture that engages and supports carers, and that needs that support of senior leadership. So it's having that senior leadership commitment, but then identifying throughout your workforce who those champions are. It's reviewing and implementing workplace policies and support. So I know all of you as organisations will have, an annual leave, special leave policy, but actually, does it reference caring within that? How might you be able to adapt that to better fit the needs of carers? So Mary described obviously how they've done that at Wigan. So it might be about introducing a policy specifically for supporting carers, and to set out what are those practical arrangements that are in place to support them. It's about access to support, so providing relevant information, and within the toolkit itself, I'm pretty sure there's a link still to all those different. So Jane spoke about the support that Encompass provide across some of the localities, but again, each of the 10 localities, so wherever your employer, wherever you're based, there will be a there'll be carer support available either through the local authority or through a carers hub or similar. So it's knowing where to access some of that that information, particularly where they're new to caring, and it's a new landscape for them to navigate. Importantly, it is about equipping managers to support working carers. So so the key role, I guess, for managers and team members, which was mentioned earlier, have a key role in minimising that stress of balancing working and caring. So having the understanding of some of those challenges and how they can play a role in supporting that. Peer-to-peer support. So if carers feel they're able to support each other, they're less likely to feel isolated. So look at what sort of networks can be established. Making sure job opportunities and promotions are flexible. So this was a figure from some information from Carers UK in 2017 in their survey. So 4 out of 10 carers had given up work completely to care. So I know we saw with the more recent information, it's a similar proportion of people that consider giving up work altogether. Obviously monitoring, evaluating, reviewing, as Mary described at Wigan. So it's keeping that cycle of review in place, listening to carers and taking on board that feedback, communicating and promoting that support and the best practice. And then the final one, I think, was put in there particularly for public sector organisations. So it's around that acting as an exemplar to other organisations, promoting those benefits of supporting working carers. So particularly where we're in a position, an influencing position, I suppose, as an organisation, how important that is. So at the end of the Working Carer Toolkit, what you'll see is a section on each of those with a bit more information, some best practice case studies. So Wigan are in there, Manchester City Council are in there. So you've got practical examples of how you can look at that. But what I would say, particularly for people who are kind of organisations starting at the beginning with this, it's not about doing all of those things at once. It's about listening to your carers and identifying which, putting a plan, I suppose, around some of that. But at the back of the toolkit, there is a self-assessment tool. So it goes through those 10 principles and asks a series of questions where you can kind of score, if you like, your own organisation against that. So if you start with that, what you'll have then is a picture, I suppose, of where you are as an organisation in terms of offering that support. And then in terms of other resources, NHS Greater Manchester is a member of the Employers for Carers Forum, which is run by Carers UK. So what they provide is basically support to employees who have caring responsibilities, but a range of resources that includes e-learning, training, practical information for carers and for those who line manage carers. So as an organisation, that's open to all health and social care workers across Greater Manchester. So you will be able to access those resources. They're really, really good, and I'd strongly urge you to have a look at them. They're great. So again, we'll circulate this. I think Anna might put in the chat the access code for the website, the website address, and the access code that you would need to be able to register with them. So that's the NHSGM access code. So you would all be able to, as health and care organisations, use that access code to access those resources. And lastly, the Supporting Our Workforce campaign, which is promoting the spread of good practice for support for working carers and disabled workforce across health and care that I mentioned right at the beginning. So that's what's prompted this bite-sized session, really to encourage anybody who hasn't completed the survey yet to complete it. So 10 minutes to complete, as we focus on this priority over those 6 months. But what that will then enable us to do is look at how the campaign across both of those areas has helped to support organisations and individuals across the workforce. So, and then look at how how that can inform how we approach future priorities. So Anna's going to pop the survey link, I think, in the chat. So for anybody who hasn't done it, it would be really much appreciated if you would do that, so that we can help us to sort of gauge that across Greater Manchester. And then over to you, really, if there's any questions. We've popped a reminder there of the next session. So again, sorry, Anna, I'm nominating you to put lots in the chat here because I can't get to it. But we'll put a reminder, a link to that session, sorry, in the chat. That's next week, looking at how we support our disabled workforce. But I will stop sharing now so I can see everybody again. There you all are. And if there are any questions at all, either around the toolkit or for Mary or Jane, Katie, I can see you've got your hand raised.
Hi, yeah, thank you, and thank you very much for the presentations today. They were really good and informative. My name's Katie Gregg, and I work in HMR, Programme Manager for our integrated workforce. And I'm really interested about how we could maybe use this to work with some of our wider providers, so some of our care providers and some of our primary care providers as well, in taking this approach. And we're doing some work around the Good Employment Charter, and I think there might be some opportunity to link the two together with the policies and supportive things in place. But I suppose my query is, from Mary's presentation, the work that was involved to get to the stage where she's at, and whether that was there a dedicated post, for instance, to help drive that forward, and what sort of resource is needed? Because I'm really conscious that small providers have got a lot less capacity to do some of this, just to get things up and running and do that continual improvement. So any learning, and if anyone's available to come to one of our locality workforce meetings to kind of have this discussion in more detail, we'd really welcome it, and share some best practice learning. So that was my first question. And my second one was just if I'm aware Encompass are in HMR, so I'd be really interested to see if we're able to see if any of our local workforce providers are actually linking and referring people to yourselves as managers become aware of people becoming our carers, and if not, if we could get some kind of easy, quick referral pathway in place as well in the locality. So those were my kind of two queries around that.
Thanks, Katie. Shall I hand over to Mary first to cover the first question?
Yeah. Thanks, Katie, and happy to provide any, if you want any chats afterwards or another time. But yeah, when I came into post about 3 years ago, and this was it was all starting off just as I came in, and my role is looking at support externally for carers, but also that obviously brought up what are we doing for our own teams, and what support have we got in place. So I got involved as well, but we had a very good link through our HR team, which really helped. And there's also another member of staff supporting carer services. So it was kind of the three of us who got it going, and all took a different part of it. And it was just one step at a time, really. And like I say, it's like now that the network, a couple of years later, the network's been in pockets across the organisation, but now it's kind of formalising as the other things are more, already in place. So it's definitely achievable. And yeah, if there's kind of a couple of people who can work together, then yeah, I think go for it, and it can definitely be done. A lot of the things will probably already be in place, but people might not know about them. So like we have our internal comms team, so involving them and cascading those messages. And again, the carer champions, once they're in place, they can do a lot of the work in sharing messages. So yeah, does that cover it, Katie? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And I think it'd be great if I could pick your brains outside of the this
Yeah,
session to maybe
absolutely.
take up some more of that learning. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat.
Thanks, Mary. Jane, do you want to cover the other aspect around Encompass?
Yes, certainly. Hi, Katie. Yes, we do have a service that covers HMR, and it's very much like Bury Carers Hub. We're primarily there to identify and support carers throughout the borough. However, a big part of the work as a service manager and team leaders is around looking at working age carers. So whether that's by going out, delivering the carer awareness sessions, the carer champion training, and then looking at the carer friendly mark accreditation, that's something that we can work with you and providers, smaller providers. I can only speak for Bury. We don't get many referrals from other organisations for working carers. You know, the main bulk of our referrals are from practitioners who have identified a carer within part of their role. Maybe they're working with a service user or they're a patient at a hospital. So it is something that we can support with, and I'm happy to put my email in as a contact. I can do an introduction to the service manager in Rochdale.
Brilliant. That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. The other point I was going to make as well around that, you know, the size of the organisation, I suppose, and how that might differ in terms of support. That was something we recognised when we did the toolkit. So I think when we looked at that self-assessment tool, there is a reference in there that depending on the size of your organisation, some of those questions might apply, some might not. So so hopefully it gives a bit of a steer for organisations, you know, in terms of the scale, I suppose, of what's doable around around groups and champions. It's you know, it can get more challenging, can't it, if there are not as many carers in an organisation. So it might be about having to look at things slightly differently if it's a very small organisation, for example. Okay, so I don't think we've got any more questions, but thanks ever so much to Jane and Mary for your insights. They were, you know, instrumental, I suppose, in being able to put the session together and to hear that. And we've just about finished on time by some quirk of chance. So thanks everybody for joining. It's been great to be able to talk through all this with you. And again, I'll put my own contact details in the chat if there's anything you know, that you think, particularly with the toolkit, if it'd be helpful to hear any feedback or any connections you might want to make with regards to that. I'm more than happy to do so. So thanks everybody.